My name is Sienna Upton. I'm 30 years old. Last Mother's Day, my sister stood up at the dinner table, announced her third pregnancy like she just won a Pulitzer, and my mom cheered so loud the neighbors probably heard. "This is everything I wanted," she said, pressing her hands together like a prayer answered. Then my dad pointed at me. "You're moving in to help." I blinked. "What?" My sister laughed. "You have nothing going on anyway. We're fixing your life." 15 people at that table. Not one of them looked uncomfortable. Not one of them said, "Hey, maybe ask her first." So I nodded. I stood up and I walked out without a word. The next morning at 7:15, my phone rang from an unknown number. "Good morning, ma'am. This is Officer Kowalski with the Fort Wayne Police Department. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from. Now, let me take you back to how my family decided my life was theirs to manage. I grew up in a 3-bedroom ranch house on the east side of Fort Wayne, Indiana. My dad, Gerald, was an electrician for 28 years before his knees gave out and he took early retirement. My mom, Donna, stayed home. She ran that house like a small government. Everyone had a role. Everyone had a job. And she decided what those were. My older sister, Meredith, fit the blueprint perfectly. Married at 26, first kid at 28, second at 31. She lives 10 minutes from my parents with her husband, Todd, and every Sunday she brings the grandkids over like clockwork. In my mother's eyes, Meredith is the finished product. Then there's me. I graduated with a degree in accounting, moved 25 minutes away into a 1-bedroom apartment, and started working remotely for a small auditing firm. I drive a 9-year-old Civic. I eat dinner alone most nights, and I'm 5 months into studying for my CPA exam, the thing that could change the entire trajectory of my career. But none of that registers with my family. Every holiday, same script. "So, are you seeing anyone? Still working from home? Must be nice having all that free time." The questions come wrapped in smiles, but the message underneath is always the same. "You're behind." Meredith gets praised for giving my mother grandchildren. I get asked when I'm going to start living, and the thing my parents never let me forget, they helped pay for part of my college. $12,000, 8 years ago. My mother brings it up at least once a month, sometimes twice. "I gave you $12,000 so you could have a career," she'll say, scanning my apartment like it personally offended her. "And this is what you're doing with it?" $12,000. The price tag on my obedience. Mother's Day. I showed up at my parents' house at 4 sharp, carrying a bouquet of pink pays and a lemon pound cake I'd baked that morning. Spent 2 hours on it, got the glaze just right. My mom took the flowers, glanced at them, and set them on the kitchen counter next to a stack of mail. "No, thank you." "No, these are lovely." Just a pivot toward the front door because Meredith's minivan had just pulled into the driveway. "There she is," Donna called out, arms already open. Meredith walked in with Todd and the kids, Sophie, 6, and little Jack, 3. My mother scooped Jack up like he was made of gold. "Look at you. You're getting so big." Then she turned to Meredith and cupped her face. "You look radiant, sweetheart." Radiant. I couldn't remember the last time my mother looked at me with that kind of warmth. At the table, I got the seat at the end, wedged between Jack's high chair and the wall. Gerald sat at the head. Meredith was next to Donna, right in the center of everything. Conversation flowed around me. Meredith talked about Sophie's preschool art show. Todd mentioned a buddy's fishing trip. Gerald asked Todd about the Pacers, normal family stuff. Someone finally turned to me. "Gerald mid-chew, you doing all right?" "Yeah, Dad. I'm good." "Good." He went back to his potatoes. That was it. 1 question, 5 words. Then the spotlight swung back to Meredith. I should have been used to it by now. But sitting at that table, watching my mother laugh at something Meredith whispered in her ear, I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. Not jealousy, just the quiet ache of being peripheral in your own family. Then Meredith caught Todd's eye across the table, and they shared a look. Quick, electric, rehearsed. Something was coming. Meredith tapped her spoon against her water glass. The room went quiet. "We have an announcement." She pressed her palm flat against her stomach and smiled. We're expecting baby number 3, 12 weeks. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Then she shot out of her chair and wrapped both arms around Meredith's neck so fast the glasses rattled. Oh my God. Oh my God. Meredith. She was crying. Actually crying. This is everything I wanted. Everything. Gerald leaned back in his chair, nodding slow, the satisfied look of a man watching his retirement plan pay out. Todd sat beside Meredith, arm across her shoulders, grinning like a campaign poster. The kids didn't understand what was happening. Jack banged his spoon on the high chair tray. Sophie asked if she could have more bread. And then Gerald turned to me. You're moving in to help. He didn't ask. He didn't soften it. He said it the way you'd tell someone to pass the salt. A fact already decided. I stared at him. What? Meredith leaned forward, still glowing. Todd's been swamped at work. I'll need help with the older two when the baby comes. She shrugged like it was obvious. You work from home. You have the time. I opened my mouth, but she kept going. You have nothing going on anyway. We're fixing your life. She said it with a laugh, like it was a joke, like everyone at the table wasn't nodding along. I looked at my mother. She was wiping her eyes, beaming at Meredith, barely registering that I existed. I looked at my father. He'd already moved on to cutting his steak. Nobody asked me, so I picked up my napkin, folded it, set it on the table. I stood up. I grabbed my purse from the back of the chair and I walked toward the front door. Sienna. My mother's voice sharp. Sienna. I didn't turn around. I drove home with the radio off. No music, no podcast, just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breathing, which I was trying very hard to keep steady. Inside my apartment, I locked the door, dropped my purse on the kitchen counter, and sat down on the floor, back against the cabinets, knees up, hands flat on the tile. My phone started buzzing before I even got my shoes off. 14 texts from my mother. I scrolled through them in order and watched the pattern unfold, the same pattern every time. First the plea, Sai, come back, sweetie. We can talk about this. Ansator sadashaning sapri yandachai. Then the guilt. You just ruined Mother's Day. I hope you're proud of yourself. Then the pivot to fake concern. I'm very worried about you. You walked out without saying a word. That's not normal. Please answer me. You're scaring me. 3 missed calls from Meredith. No voicemail. She doesn't leave voicemails. She just expects you to call back. 1 text from Todd. Hey, everything okay? I didn't answer any of them. I turned my phone off, brushed my teeth, and went to bed at 8:30 on Mother's Day, like someone who had just decided to stop participating. I slept hard. Dreamless, the kind of sleep your body gives you when it knows tomorrow is going to be worse. At 7:15 the next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Good morning, ma'am. This is Officer Dan Kowalski with the Fort Wayne Police Department. We received a call expressing concern about your well-being. Would you be willing to let me come by and check in with you? I sat on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, and felt something cold settle in my stomach. Yes, I said. Come by. Officer Kowalski was polite, mid-40s, calm eyes, clipboard in hand. He stood at my door in full uniform and spoke like someone who'd done this 100 times. Ma'am, we received a call from a family member stating that you left a gathering abruptly last night and may be experiencing a mental health crisis. They expressed concern that you could be a danger to yourself. I let him in. He looked around. Dishes drying on the rack, laptop on the kitchen table, CPA study guide open next to a coffee mug. The apartment of someone who was functioning, not someone unraveling. Can I ask what happened last night? He said. My family announced a plan for my life without asking me. I disagreed, so I left. He wrote something on his clipboard, then he looked up. That sounds like a reasonable response to me. We talked for about 10 minutes. He asked the standard questions. Was I sleeping? Eating? Had I thought about hurting myself? I answered everyone clearly. No. No, absolutely not. When he stood to leave, he paused at the door. Ma'am, I want you to know you seem perfectly fine. I'll note that in my report. Thank you. One more thing. He lowered his voice slightly. If someone files repeated welfare checks that turn out to be unfounded, there can be legal consequences for the caller. Filing a false report is a misdemeanor in Indiana. I nodded slowly. I can't tell you who made the call, but it came from a family member. He didn't need to tell me. I already knew. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it. My mother had actually called the police, not because she was worried, because I didn't answer her texts, because I walked out instead of falling in line. She'd weaponized the system, and something inside me clicked into place. After Kowalski left, I sat at my kitchen table and did what I do best. I ran the numbers. If I moved into Meredith's house, I'd be watching Sophie and Jack at minimum 3 to 4 hours a day. That's the equivalent of a part-time job. My firm expects 40 billable hours a week. I can't bill hours while breaking up fights over crayons. I'd miss deadlines. I'd lose the Q2 audit project Linda just trusted me with. I'd fall behind on CPA prep. And the exam window is October, 5 months. That's not a generous timeline, even if I do nothing else. Then there's the lease. 8 months left. Early termination penalty, $1,900. Money I don't have lying around. And now the welfare check. If my mother does this again, there's a record, a pattern. And when I apply to larger firms, they run background checks. Anything that flags unstable can cost me an offer before I even get to the interview. I pulled up a notepad on my laptop and started a list. Not of things I was willing to sacrifice, of things I refused to lose. My job, my CPA exam, my apartment, my reputation. 4 things. Simple, non-negotiable. 3 months ago, I'd made a mistake. Meredith asked me to watch the kids for a week while Todd traveled for work. I said yes. I fell behind on a deliverable. Linda pulled me aside after. Sienna, this can't happen again. I went to bat for you on this project. I'd promised myself then, never again. And here was my family not asking me to help, telling me to give up everything I'd built so they could save on childcare. I closed the laptop, picked up my phone, still off. I left it that way. I wasn't ready to talk to them yet, but I was done running the math on someone else's plan for my life. Monday morning, I turned my phone back on. 27 new messages. My mother's texts had evolved overnight. The fake concern was gone. Now it was pure offense. The police said, "You're fine. So why aren't you answering me? Are you punishing me? I raised you. I fed you. I paid for your school. And this is the thanks I get. Your sister is pregnant, Sienna. She needs you. Stop being selfish. Katatumay. Sirkastalter Meredith. Meredith's messages were shorter, clipped. Seriously, Sienna, grow up. We need to talk about the plan. Todd and I already told the kids. Aunt Sienna is coming to stay. Don't embarrass us. Then Gerald called. I picked up because some habits die hard. You made your mother cry all night. His voice was flat, cold iron. You'll be at the house Sunday. The whole family's coming. Patricia, Frank, everyone. You'll be there. End of discussion. I waited for the part where he'd ask about the police showing up at my apartment. The part where he'd say, "Are you okay? We heard what your mother did." It never came. Not one of them. Not Donna, not Meredith, not Gerald, asked how I felt about a uniformed officer knocking on my door at 7 in the morning because my mother told them I might hurt myself. They didn't care. They just wanted me back in the chair, back in the plan, Gerald added almost as an afterthought. Patricia's coming too, so behave. I almost laughed. Behave like I was 14 and had slammed a door too hard. I'll be there, I said. He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat with the phone in my lap for a long time. Then I opened my notepad, the one with the 4 things I refused to lose, and added a 5th line. My dignity. I'm sitting here with 27 unread messages, a police report with my name on it, and a family that still hasn't asked me if I'm okay. And I need to decide what to do next. If you've ever had someone treat your boundaries like an inconvenience, drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if this is hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button. I promise this story isn't over yet. Tuesday evening, I called Meredith. I figured if I could reach one person, the person who actually needed the help, maybe I could end this without it going nuclear. Finally, she said when she picked up, "Are you done sulking?" "I'm not moving in, Meredith." Silence then. "Excuse me. I have a job. I have a lease. I'm studying for my CPA. I can't give that up." "You work from home, Sienna. You can work from anywhere." "That's not how it works. You don't even have a boyfriend. What exactly are you holding on to?" I pressed my forehead against the kitchen cabinet, counted to 3. "That's my life. I get to decide how I live it." Mom is devastated. "Do you understand what you're doing to this family?" "I understand that nobody asked me because we didn't think we needed to. We're your family. You help. That's what family does." Helping and being assigned a full-time, unpaid job are different things. She went quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then the pitch changed. The brightness in her voice dropped into something low and calculated. "Todd and I already told Sophie and Jack that Aunt Sienna is moving in. They're excited." Sophie picked out a welcome card. "Are you really going to disappoint them too?" I closed my eyes. There it was. The trump card. The children. Not because she cared about my relationship with them, but because she knew I did. "Don't use your kids to guilt me, Meredith." "I'm not guilting you. I'm telling you the reality. The reality is that you need free childcare, and I'm the cheapest option." The line went dead. She hung up on me. I set the phone down on the counter and stared at it. A thought crossed my mind, clear as glass. She never once asked how I was doing. Not once. 8 minutes later, my phone rang again. Donna. She was crying before I even said hello. "Are you trying to kill me, Sienna? I haven't slept in 2 days." "Mom, you called the police on me." A long pause, the kind where you can hear someone recalculating. "I was worried about you. You left in the middle of dinner without saying a word. Any mother would be concerned. You told them I was mentally unstable." "I said I was worried, that's all." "An officer showed up at my apartment and asked if I was a danger to myself." "That's not worried, Mom. That's a weapon." "Don't be dramatic." I held the phone away from my face for a second, breathed, brought it back. "I left because Dad told me what my life was going to be at a dinner table without asking, and you cheered. Because it's a beautiful thing. Your sister needs you. Your family needs you. What's wrong with that? What's wrong is that nobody asked." She shifted gears. The crying stopped like a faucet turning off. "Sienna, if you don't come Sunday, I'll tell everyone what happened. That you abandoned us on Mother's Day. That you've been ignoring your family. That you refused to help your pregnant sister." Then tell them another pause. Longer this time. "What did you say?" "Tell them whatever you want. I'll be there Sunday." I could hear her breathing. Quick, shallow. She hadn't expected that. "You'll be there?" "Yes. And I'll have something to say." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but my voice hadn't cracked. Not once. I sat on the kitchen floor, same spot as 2 nights ago, and pressed my palms flat against the tile until they stopped trembling. Sunday was 5 days away, and I had work to do. Wednesday night, I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and a single sheet of lined paper. Not a speech, not a list of grievances. 3 facts I needed 15 people to hear. 1. I never agreed to move in. 2. Someone in this family called the police and lied about my mental state. 3. I have been told, not asked, to give up my career, my home, and my independence so my sister can save on childcare. Simple, undeniable, no embellishments. Then I picked up my phone and called Aunt Patricia. Patricia is my dad's younger sister. She lives alone in a condo in Mooney, teaches high school biology, and keeps the quietest distance from this family of anyone I know. I always wondered why. When I was a kid, she'd show up to holidays, sit in the corner, leave early. My mother called her difficult. "Aunt Pat, are you going to Dad's on Sunday?" I was thinking about it. "Why?" "I need someone there who isn't them." She went quiet for a beat. "What happened?" I told her. The announcement, Gerald's order, the welfare check, Donna's threats. When I finished, Patricia said nothing for a long time. I could hear the TV in her background, muffled. Then she spoke, and her voice had something in it I'd never heard from her before. Something old and heavy. "They did this to me. 30 years ago, when Gerald and Donna had Meredith. I was 26, single, working nights as a nurse. They told me to move in and help. I did. I gave up my apartment. I put my whole life on hold for 3 years. What happened when you left? Nobody thanked me. Nobody even noticed. She cleared her throat. I'll be there Sunday, honey. I should have done this a long time ago. I found out later what Meredith and my mother were doing while I was preparing. Donna had started making calls on Thursday. She rang every family member coming Sunday. Aunt Beth, Uncle Frank, the cousins, and laid the groundwork with the same careful script. Sienna's been going through a rough patch. She's isolating. She walked out of Mother's Day dinner without a word. We're all a little worried about her. Just be gentle with her on Sunday. Okay? She's fragile right now. Fragile. My mother was pre-framing me before I even walked through the door. If I showed up calm, it meant I was putting on a brave face. If I showed emotion, it meant I was proving them right. She'd built a box I couldn't climb out of, or so she thought. Meredith went a different route. She texted a handful of relatives directly. The message was shorter, blunter. Just a heads up. Sienna has been really weird about my pregnancy. I think she's jealous. Can you guys please not bring up the baby stuff around her? I don't want any drama. She sent it to 5 people. One of them was my cousin Rachel. Rachel is 28, Patricia's daughter. We're not best friends, but we've always been honest with each other in that way. Cousins sometimes are. No obligations, just the occasional real conversation at a family barbecue. Rachel screenshot the message and texted it to me Friday morning with 3 words. Thought you should know. I read it twice. Jealous. My sister told our family I was jealous of her pregnancy. I wasn't jealous. I was being dismantled slowly, deliberately, and now they were salting the ground before I could even plant my flag. I folded the paper with my 3 facts, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and texted Rachel back. Thank you. I'll handle it. Wednesday morning, before the paper, before the phone call to Patricia, I had a meeting with my boss. Linda Marsh is 52, runs a 12-person auditing firm, and has 0 patience for excuses. She promoted me 6 months ago to senior associate. I'm the youngest person at the firm with that title. We were on a video call reviewing the Q2 pipeline when she leaned into the camera and said something that rearranged my entire week. I'm assigning you the Hollowell account. Full audit. You'll manage the engagement from start to finish. I sat up straighter. Hollowell Manufacturing is the firm's biggest client, $2.4 million in annual revenue. Getting lead on that file is the kind of thing that gets you a letter of recommendation for CPA review. I'm trusting you with this, Sienna. I went to bat for you. I won't let you down. I know you won't. She paused. But I need you locked in for the next 4 months. No distractions. Can you do that? 3 months ago, I couldn't have answered that, honestly. 3 months ago, I'd spent a week watching Meredith's kids while Todd was away and missed a deliverable. Linda had pulled me aside afterward. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't needed to. Sienna, this firm gives people 1 shot at lead engagements. Don't give me a reason to pull it back. I'd promised myself then. No more. Not again. And now my family was asking me to do exactly what had almost cost me everything. Except this time they weren't asking. They were telling. 4 months, I told Linda. I'll be locked in. When I hung up, I stared at the wall for a full minute. Then I opened my CPA prep calendar. October exam, 153 days. Every one of them mattered. This was real. This was mine. And nobody was going to take it from me. Thursday evening, my phone buzzed. Gerald. I picked up because some part of me still hoped he'd be the one to say, "Hey, I'm sorry about how that went." Instead, your mother and Meredith set up the spare room. The twin beds already made. You can bring your things Saturday and get settled before Sunday dinner. I leaned against the counter. Dad, I already told Meredith I'm not moving in. I'm not asking. I know you're not. That's the problem. He let the silence stretch. A trick he'd used since I was 12. Wait long enough and the other person fills the space with compliance. I used to fall for it every time. I paid for your education. He said, you helped with $12,000 8 years ago. I've thanked you every time you've brought it up, and you bring it up a lot. Don't get smart with me. I'm not. I'm being accurate. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice had the weight of concrete. Sunday, be there. He hung up. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Then on a hunch, I called Meredith's number. She didn't pick up, but the voicemail greeting had changed. It used to be just her name. Now it said, "Hi, you've reached the Graves family. Meredith, Todd, Sophie, Jack, and baby on the way. Baby on the way. 12 weeks pregnant and already building a brand." I called Rachel. "They actually set up the room," I said. "At Meredith's house, a bed, sheets, the whole thing." Rachel was quiet for a second. "They're acting like you already agreed, because in their heads I did. The moment my dad pointed at me and I didn't scream, they counted it as a yes. What are you going to do?" "What I said I'd do, show up Sunday and tell the truth." Saturday night, the apartment was quiet. I'd cleaned everything, not because I needed to, but because my hands needed something to do. I sat at the kitchen table with my CPA prep binder open, but unread, the sheet of paper with 3 facts laid flat in front of me and my phone face down beside my elbow. Tomorrow I'd stand in front of my family, my parents, my sister, my uncle, my aunt, half a dozen relatives who probably already thought I was falling apart. And I'd say out loud the things I'd spent 30 years learning to swallow. I wasn't scared of them. I was scared of myself. I was scared that my mother would cry and I'd fold. That Gerald would look at me with that heavy silence and I'd sit back down. That Meredith would say, "Think about the kids." And I'd cave the way I caved 3 months ago. The way I'd caved a dozen times before that. I picked up my phone and scrolled back to the screenshot Rachel had sent. Meredith's text. "Sienna has been really weird about my pregnancy. I think she's jealous." Jealous of what? Of being so financially strapped that you need your sister to quit her job and raise your children for free. Of having a husband who sits in silence while his in-laws volunteer someone else's labor. I thought about Aunt Patricia, 26, single, working nights. She gave up 3 years because she didn't know she was allowed to say no. Nobody taught her that. Nobody taught me either. The difference was I was learning now. I picked up the pen and wrote one more line at the bottom of the paper, underneath the 3 facts. I am not the backup plan. I folded the paper, put it back in my jacket pocket, and set my alarm for 7. Sunday, 12:45. I pulled into my parents' driveway behind Uncle Frank's silver pickup truck. The backyard was already set up. Gerald had dragged 2 folding tables together, end to end, and lined them with plastic chairs. The grill was smoking. Donna had laid out a checkered tablecloth and a spread of sides, potato salad, Kleslaw, rolls still warm from the oven. The whole thing looked like a magazine shoot for a family that had its life together. About 15 people. Gerald at the grill, tongs in hand. Uncle Frank beside him, beer already open. Aunt Beth was arranging napkins. A couple of distant cousins I only saw at holidays. Meredith sat at the center of the long table, one hand resting on her belly. Todd on her left. Sophie was drawing on a paper plate. Jack was running laps around the picnic bench, and in the far corner, sitting in a lawn chair with her sunglasses on and a glass of iced tea in her hand, Aunt Patricia. She looked up when I came through the gate and gave me the smallest nod. Donna met me before I made it 3 steps inside. There she is. She pulled me into a hug, tight, performative, angled so the rest of the yard could see it. Her voice was bright and loud. "My baby girl, I've been so worried about you." Over her shoulder, I saw Beth glance over. Frank looked up from his beer. Meredith didn't move. "I'm fine, Mom." "Of course you are. Of course you are." She held my face in her hands for just a second too long, like she was presenting evidence. I let her. I smiled. I sat down at the table. Everyone was looking at me the way you look at someone who's been through something. Soft eyes, careful smiles, the kind of attention that comes pre-packaged with pity. They'd already been briefed. The food came off the grill. Plates were passed. Small talk circulated. Weather, the Colts draft picks, Beth's new garden beds. Normal. Careful. Like everyone was performing relaxed. Then Donna stood up. "Before we eat, I just want to say a few words. She smoothed the front of her blouse and smiled at the table the way a pastor smiles at a congregation. This family is growing. Meredith and Todd are expecting their third, and we couldn't be happier. Polite applause, Beth said. Wonderful. Frank raised his beer. Then Donna turned the spotlight. And we're so blessed that Sienna has agreed to move in with Meredith and help with the kids once the baby arrives. She looked at me, wide smile, camera ready. Isn't that right, sweetheart? Every head at the table rotated toward me. 15 sets of eyes. Someone at the far end clapped softly. I didn't speak. Donna's smile tightened at the edges. She waited 1 second. 2. Meredith filled the gap. She's just shy about it. We already set up the room. She laughed. The easy, practiced laugh of someone used to smoothing over cracks. Todd painted it last weekend. Gerald still standing by the grill. It settled. The table seemed to accept this. A few people nodded. Someone said, "That's sweet of you, Sienna." Aunt Beth murmured to Frank, "She's such a good sister." I looked at Patricia. She was watching me from behind her sunglasses, iced tea untouched. I looked at my hands, flat on the table, still. Donna was still standing, waiting for me to confirm her version of reality. The version where I was grateful, cooperative, and obedient. I let the silence hold for 3 more seconds. Then I looked at Meredith, at Donna, at Gerald, and back at the table, and I didn't smile. Meredith's patience cracked first. "Okay, Sienna, for real, what exactly are you holding on to?" She leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice pitched loud enough for the whole yard. A 1-bedroom apartment, a job where you sit alone at a desk all day. A few relatives shifted in their chairs. Beth looked at Frank. Frank looked at his beer. Donna moved in from the other side, voice softer but sharper. "Honey, I'm saying this because I love you. You're living alone. No one around. I worry about you. I really do think you might be struggling." "Struggling?" She said it gently, like a diagnosis. Uncle Frank cleared his throat. "It wouldn't kill you to help out, kid. Family's family." I felt the weight of it. All of it. Pressing down on my shoulders like wet concrete. 15 people, all expecting me to nod. Agree. Submit. Meredith looked vindicated. Donna looked motherly. Gerald stood at the grill, arms crossed, watching like a foreman supervising a project he'd already approved. Todd sat beside Meredith with his head slightly bowed, picking at the label on his water bottle. He hadn't said a word. Rachel, 3 seats to my left, had her jaw locked tight. Patricia removed her sunglasses and folded them on the table. "We're trying to give you something to do with your life," Meredith said. She said it like a gift. I looked at the table, at the potato salad, and the paper plates, and the plastic forks, and all the people sitting around this perfectly staged backyard acting like what was happening was normal. I reached down and felt the folded paper in my jacket pocket. 3 facts, 1 line. I pressed my palms flat on the table, pushed myself up, and stood. "Can I say something?" Donna smiled. "Of course, honey." She thought I was going to agree. I could see it in the way her shoulders relaxed, the way Meredith leaned back with that satisfied half grin. Gerald turned from the grill to watch, tongs still in hand. The whole table settled in, expecting the final act of a script they'd already written. "I need everyone here to hear this," I said. "Not because I want attention, but because some of you have been told things about me that aren't true." The smiles faded. Not all at once. They dissolved at different speeds around the table, like candles burning down at uneven rates. Meredith straightened. Donna's hand moved to her collarbone. Gerald lowered the tongs. "I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to make a scene, but I need to say 3 things, and I need everyone at this table to hear all 3. Beth whispered something to Frank. Frank shook his head. Rachel's eyes were locked on mine. Patricia sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap. "Go ahead," said Uncle Frank, sounding more curious than hostile. I looked at my mother. She was gripping the edge of the table. Her eyes were bright, not with tears yet, but with the early tremor of a woman who was starting to realize that her daughter was not going to read from the script. I looked at Meredith. She had her hand on her belly, chin slightly raised, like she was daring me to ruin the performance. I looked at Gerald. His face was stone, and I thought about the line I'd written at the bottom of that piece of paper. The one folded in my jacket. The one I didn't need to take out because I'd already memorized every word. First, I said, I'm standing in front of 15 people and my hands are shaking, but I'm done pretending. Before I tell you what I said, if you're watching this and you've ever been in a room full of people who decided your life for you, I see you. Hit that like button if you've ever walked out of a room knowing you'd never go back the same way. Now, let me tell you what happened next. First, I never agreed to move in with Meredith. Donna opened her mouth. I held up one hand, not aggressive, just clear. At Mother's Day dinner, Dad pointed at me and said, "You're moving in to help." Meredith said, "You have nothing going on anyway. We're fixing your life." Nobody asked me. Nobody checked if I had a job, a lease, plans. I was assigned. I paused, let the words sit. I nodded that night. Then I stood up and walked out. And I want to be very clear about something. Nodding and leaving is not agreement. It's restraint. The table was quiet, not the comfortable kind. The kind where people are recalculating. Frank was looking at Gerald now, eyebrows slightly raised. Beth had stopped fussing with the napkins. A cousin I barely knew. Amy, maybe, had her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Donna broke first. You nodded, Sienna. You stood up and you nodded. Everyone saw it. Yes. And then I walked out without a word. That's the behavior of someone who was done listening, not someone who agreed. That's not how it looked. That's the difference between what happened and the story you told. Meredith rolled her eyes. This is so dramatic. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't called anyone a name. I'm standing in front of my family, telling them what actually happened. If that feels dramatic to you, I think that says more about what you expected me to do. Beth leaned toward Frank and murmured something I couldn't hear. Frank didn't respond. His eyes were on Gerald, who was standing very still beside the grill. I studied my breathing. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Second, I said, the morning after Mother's Day, at 7:15 a.m., Zada police officer showed up at my apartment. He introduced himself as Officer Kowalski from the Fort Wayne Police Department. The table went completely still. Gerald's hand tightened on the grill tongs. Donna's face drained of color so fast it looked like someone had pulled a plug. Someone in this family called a welfare check on me. They told the police I was mentally unstable, that I might be a danger to myself. What? Uncle Frank set his beer down. Someone called the cops. Beth turned to Donna. Donna, is that true? Donna's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I was worried. She walked out without saying anything. Any mother would. I want to be very clear, I said, cutting through. I am not mentally unstable. I am not in crisis. I left a dinner where my family told me what to do with my life without asking me. That is a reasonable reaction. The officer agreed. Patricia spoke for the first time. Quiet, measured. I believe her. The table shifted. Not everyone, but enough. Beth was looking at Donna with a new expression, something between disbelief and disappointment. Frank rubbed the back of his neck. Two cousins exchanged a glance. Donna's eyes were wet now. I was worried about my daughter. That's all. The officer told me something before he left, I said. He said that repeated false welfare checks can lead to legal consequences for the caller. In Indiana, filing a false report is a misdemeanor. I wasn't threatening, I was quoting, but the distinction didn't matter much to Donna, whose hands were now trembling in her lap. Donna, Beth said slowly, you called the police on your own daughter. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard in that backyard. Third, I turned toward Meredith. She stiffened. Todd's hand moved to her arm, but she shook it off. Meredith, you sent a text message to several family members this week. You told them not to bring up your pregnancy around me because, and I'm quoting here, Sienna has been really weird about my pregnancy. I think she's jealous. Meredith's face went rigid. Her eyes flicked toward Rachel. Rachel didn't look away. That's I was trying to protect you. You weren't protecting me. You were pre-framing me so that when I stood up and said something, no one would believe me. You wanted everyone at this table to think I was unstable and jealous before I even opened my mouth. The table rustled. Amy looked at Meredith like she was seeing her for the first time. Frank crossed his arms. Beth was shaking her head slowly, lips pressed thin. "Rachel, is this true?" Beth asked. Rachel nodded. "I have the screenshot. She sent it to me on Thursday." Meredith turned on her. "You showed her. You lied about her to our family." "I didn't lie. You called me jealous. I said in front of our cousins behind my back while I was at home dealing with a police visit you never asked me about." I paused. Let the table absorb it. "I'm not jealous of your pregnancy, Meredith. I'm happy for you. I've always been happy for you. But I am not your nanny. I am not your backup plan. And I am not broken because I live alone and don't have kids." My voice didn't break. I made sure of it. Patricia caught my eye across the table and gave me a single steady nod. Beth exhaled and said barely above a whisper, "Jesus Christ." Patricia stood up. She didn't rush it. She set her iced tea down, pressed both palms flat on the table, and rose like a woman who'd been rehearsing this moment for 3 decades. "I need to say something, and I should have said it a long time ago." Gerald shifted. "Pat, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time, Gerald." The table froze. Patricia rarely raised her voice. She barely spoke at family gatherings at all. But right now, every pair of eyes at that table was on her. 30 years ago, when you and Donna had Meredith, this family did the same thing to me. I was 26, single, working night shifts at the hospital. You told me to move in and help with the baby, and I did. She paused, swallowed. I gave up my apartment. I put off my nursing certification. I spent 3 years changing diapers and doing laundry and cooking meals because everyone agreed that since I didn't have children of my own, my time didn't matter. Beth turned to Frank. His eyes were wide. And when I finally moved out, nobody thanked me. Nobody acknowledged what I'd given up. Nobody even noticed I'd been carrying the load. I was just expected like furniture. She turned to me. "Don't make my mistake, Sienna." Gerald's jaw tightened. That was different. It was identical. Patricia's voice was steady now, stripped of everything but clarity. "The only difference is that Sienna is saying no. And I wish to God I had done the same." Beth exhaled hard. Frank uncrossed his arms. A cousin at the end of the table whispered something to the person next to her. The math was shifting. Not completely. Not everyone was on my side. But the room no longer belonged to Donna and Gerald. It belonged to the truth. Donna stood up. She was crying now. Real tears. The loud kind. The kind designed to fill a room and make everyone look at her. "I just wanted this family to be together. Is that so terrible? I just wanted us to help each other." "Mom," I said, worrying about someone means asking how they are, not calling the police when they don't answer your texts. I was scared. "You were angry. There's a difference." She pressed her hand to her chest. "You're making me look awful in front of everyone, my own daughter. I'm not making you look like anything. I'm telling them what happened. If the truth makes you look bad, that's not something I did to you." Gerald stepped away from the grill. "That's enough, Sienna. This is a family matter." "You made it a family matter, Dad. You announced my living arrangements at a dinner table in front of everyone. You invited 15 people to a barbecue where Mom planned to publicly confirm a decision I never made. You don't get to call it private now." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. I'd never seen that before. Gerald up without a sentence ready. He looked at Donna. She was wiping her eyes with a napkin. He looked at Patricia. She stared back unblinking. For the first time in my life, my father had nothing to say. Beth broke the silence. "Gerald, did you know about the police?" He hesitated. "No, I didn't." Beth looked at Donna. Donna looked at the tablecloth. "Donna," Beth said evenly, "calling the police because your daughter left dinner is not what families do." Donna's crying turned into something quieter, not the performance kind. The kind that comes when the audience stops buying it. I stayed standing. I wasn't done. Meredith broke next. She didn't cry. She did something worse. She dropped the mask. Fine. You want the truth? You want everyone at this table to hear the actual truth? She stood up, hands flat on the table, voice sharp enough to cut glass. Todd got his hours cut. Daycare for 3 kids is $3,900 a month. We can't afford it. That's why we need you. The number hung in the air. $3,900. A few people shifted in their seats. Frank let out a low whistle. And I'm sorry about that, I said. I genuinely am. But the answer to your financial problem is not to take my career away so you can save on childcare. You work from home. You have free time. I work 40 hours a week. I'm studying for a professional certification. I manage audit accounts. I don't have free time. I have a life you've never bothered to understand. Todd, who had been silent this entire time, put his hand on Meredith's arm. She pulled away. Then he spoke quiet, almost apologetic. She's right. Meredith turned on him so fast I thought the chair might tip. Don't you dare. I told you we should have asked. He looked at the table. Not at me. Not at Meredith. Just at the space in front of his plate. I told you from the beginning, this should have been a conversation, not a plan. We're in the middle of we made her feel like she had no choice. That's not okay. Meredith's mouth was open, but nothing came out. The woman who always had a response, always had a redirect, a spin, a sharper line, was staring at her husband like he'd pulled the rug out from under the entire stage. The table was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. I waited until the whispers died down. Then I spoke. I want to be clear about what I'm willing to do and what I'm not. I looked at the table, every face, one at a time. I will babysit once a month if I'm asked ahead of time. And if it doesn't conflict with my work, that's it. That's the help I'm offering. Donna opened her mouth. I kept going. I will not move in with Meredith. I will not give up my apartment. I will not stop studying for my CPA exam. I will not sacrifice my job because someone in this family decided my time isn't valuable. I took a breath. And if anyone calls the police on me again with a false report, I will file a formal complaint. Not because I want to hurt anyone, because I need it to stop. Donna's voice was thin. Are you threatening me? No, I'm telling you where the line is. Gerald was looking at the ground now. Not at me. Not at Donna, just at the grass between his shoes. His arms were at his sides. The tongs were on the grill. He looked like a man who had just realized the foundation he'd been standing on was made of sand. Beth nodded slowly. Frank rubbed his face. Rachel reached under the table and squeezed my hand. Just once, quick, then let go. I looked at my mother. I love you, Mom, but love doesn't mean I have to say yes to everything. I looked at my dad. I respect you, Dad, but respect goes both ways. I looked at Meredith. I love your kids. I love you, but I'm not your solution. Nobody objected. Nobody argued. For the first time in 30 years, my family heard me and had nothing to say back. I walked to the end of the table where Sophie and Jack were sitting, oblivious to everything that had just happened. Jack was stacking plastic cups. Sophie was drawing a butterfly on a paper plate. I crouched down and kissed Sophie on the forehead. That's a beautiful butterfly, sweetheart. She looked up. Aunt Sienna, are you coming to live with us? I smoothed her hair. No, honey, but I'll come visit. I promise. She nodded, like that was a perfectly acceptable answer, and went back to her drawing. Kids are better at accepting boundaries than adults are. Funny how that works. I stood and turned to Meredith. I love your kids, and I love you, but I can't be what you need me to be right now. I hope you understand that someday. Meredith didn't respond. Her eyes were red, her jaw tight. Todd gave me a small nod. It wasn't much, but it was something. I turned to my parents. I love you both, but love doesn't mean obedience. It never did. Gerald said nothing. Donna's hands were covering her mouth. Whether she was hiding a sob or biting backwards, I couldn't tell. I picked up my purse from the chair, put on my jacket, and walked toward the gate. Patricia met me at the car. She didn't say anything at first, just pulled me into a hug, tight and steady. The kind of hug you give someone when words aren't enough. You did good, kid. I'm shaking. I know. That's how you know it mattered. I got in my car, pulled out of the driveway, and drove home. I didn't cry. I rolled the windows down and let the warm air fill the car, and I drove with my hands steady on the wheel and the radio off. Just me. Just the road. Just the sound of someone finally choosing herself. The first week after Sunday was the quietest my phone had been in years. Donna didn't call. Gerald didn't call. Meredith blocked me on everything. Instagram, Facebook, even Venmo, total digital exile, the kind of silence that's supposed to punish you. Except it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in a month. Patricia called every evening. Quick check-ins, never pushy. How was your day? Did you eat something real? I'm proud of you. Rachel texted almost daily. Links to articles about setting boundaries, memes about family drama, the occasional just checking in. She didn't need to do any of it. She did it anyway. Uncle Frank called on Thursday. His voice was careful, measured, like a man picking his way through a field he wasn't sure was safe. I want you to know I didn't know about the police thing. That wasn't right. Thank you, Uncle Frank. I'm not saying I agree with everything you said, but the police, that was wrong. Your mother shouldn't have done that. It wasn't a full endorsement, but it was something. A crack in the wall. At church the following Sunday, Donna ran into a woman from her book club. I heard there was some trouble at your family dinner, the woman said. Donna smiled tightly. Just a misunderstanding. But the word was out. Not because I'd spread it. I hadn't told a soul outside the family. The relatives who'd been there talked. Of course they did. That's what happens when you stage a public confrontation and the other person shows up with the truth. Meanwhile, I sat at my kitchen table Monday morning, opened the Hollowell file, and got to work. The Q2 audit wasn't going to run itself. I submitted the preliminary engagement letter to Linda by Wednesday. On time, ahead of schedule. Actually, Meredith and Todd had to figure it out. That's the part nobody wants to hear, but it's the part that matters. When the free option walks away, you deal with the real cost. Todd picked up extra shifts. Not glamorous. He went from 32 hours to 44 at the distribution center. He asked his supervisor for the Saturday morning slot nobody wanted. He got it. Meredith applied for Indiana's Child Care Development Fund, the state subsidy program that covers part of daycare costs for families under a certain income threshold. With Todd's reduced hours, they qualified. It wasn't a windfall. It covered about 60% of the monthly cost, but 60% of $3,900 is a lot of breathing room. Donna, for the first time in years, started watching Sophie and Jack 2 afternoons a week, not because anyone asked her to, because she had to. The free labor she'd outsourced to me was now landing on her own calendar. She called Beth after the first week and said, "I forgot how exhausting this is." Beth told me later. I didn't laugh. I wanted to. Meredith still hadn't reached out to me, but she'd texted Rachel, "I can't believe she did this to us." Rachel sent me the screenshot. I read it once, then put my phone away. I wasn't surprised. Meredith wasn't angry because I'd hurt her. She was angry because the system she'd built around her, the system where I was the silent, available, unpaid solution, had stopped working. Todd, on the other hand, texted me directly. Short. Honest. "I'm sorry, Sienna. I should have spoken up earlier. We're figuring it out. I hope you know I meant what I said." I stared at the message for a while, then I typed back, "Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that." It was small, but it was real. 3 weeks later, Gerald called. I was sitting on my couch reviewing audit work papers when his name lit up the screen. I almost let it ring through, but something, not guilt, not obligation, maybe just a daughter's stubborn hope, made me pick up. "Hey, Dad." Hey. He was quiet for a long time. I could hear the TV in the background. Low. A baseball game. "Your mother wants to call you. She doesn't know what to say." She could start with an apology. More silence. I listened to the crack of a bat through the phone. "I know the police thing was wrong. I didn't know she did that until you said it on Sunday." "Okay. She shouldn't have done it." "No, she shouldn't." Another pause. This one was different. Heavier. Like he was pushing something uphill that had been sitting in the same spot for 61 years. "And what you said about me telling you to move in. About not asking." He cleared his throat. I've been thinking about that. And I'm used to deciding things for the house, for the family. That's how I've always done it. I know. Pat said some things to me this week about what happened to her. I didn't see it that way before. What way do you see it now? He exhaled long and slow. I see that I made you feel like you didn't have a choice, and that wasn't right. I sat with that for a moment. It wasn't an apology. He hadn't said I'm sorry. He'd said it wasn't right. Which is the closest a man like Gerald Upton gets to admitting fault. That's not an apology, Dad, but it's something. Yeah, he said quietly. I know. He hung up a few minutes later. No hug, no tears, just a thin wire stretched between us, fragile, but still holding. 1 month after Sunday, my phone buzzed at 9 in the morning. Donna. Not a call, a text. I shouldn't have called the police. I know that now. I read it 3 times, counted the words. 11. No, I'm sorry. No, please forgive me. No emoji, no follow-up wall of text explaining why she was actually justified. Just the admission, raw and short, and probably the hardest 11 words Donna Upton had ever typed. I set the phone down and poured a cup of coffee, took a sip, thought about it, then I picked it up and typed back, "Thank you for saying that." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Would you want to come to dinner Saturday? Just me and your father, nobody else. I stood at the kitchen counter and waited. Part of me, the part that had been trained since childhood to smooth things over, wanted to say yes immediately, to rush back into the house and pretend the last month hadn't happened. But that wasn't how this worked anymore. Okay, I typed, but I'm bringing dessert and I'm leaving by 9. Okay. 1 word, no argument, no conditions. I stared at that single okay on my screen for a long time. It was the most honest thing my mother had said to me in years, not the admission about the police. That was the bare minimum. But the okay, the acceptance of a boundary without resistance, without guilt, without a 5-paragraph essay about how much she'd sacrificed. That was new. It wasn't forgiveness. We weren't there yet. Maybe we'd never fully get there. But it was a door cracked open just enough to let a little light through. I added Saturday to my calendar and went back to work. 3 months later, I submitted my CPA exam application on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks ahead of the October deadline. Linda reviewed my Q2 Hollowell file that same week and called me from her car on the way to a client meeting. Best work I've seen from you, Sienna. I mean it. I said, thank you, and hung up and sat at my kitchen table for a full minute, just breathing. The Hollowell engagement earned me a recommendation letter. Linda wrote it herself. 2 paragraphs, professional, specific. The kind of letter that opens doors at larger firms, the kind I'd been working toward for years. I babysat Sophie and Jack once a month on a Saturday afternoon, scheduled in advance. I picked them up at 11 SAU. I brought them back by 4. I took them to the park, bought them ice cream, helped Sophie with her letters, and let Jack run himself dizzy on the swings. It was enough for them and for me. My relationship with my parents was different now, not worse. Different. Saturday dinners happened twice a month. Donna still slipped into old patterns sometimes. A comment about my apartment, a hint about meeting someone nice, but when she did, I'd say, "Mom, we talked about this." And she'd stop. Not gracefully, not without a flicker of irritation, but she'd stop. Gerald was quieter, which for a man who'd spent 61 years filling silence with commands was its own kind of change. Meredith hadn't apologized. She probably wouldn't, but she'd stopped calling me selfish in front of relatives. And Todd said she'd started looking into part-time remote work for after the baby came. That wasn't redemption. It was logistics. But at least she'd stopped expecting someone else to carry the load. The system had shifted. Not because I'd won, because I'd refused to lose. Here's what I've learned. Your family will tell you they know what's best for you. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes what's best for you is just their way of saying what's most convenient for us. I don't hate my family. I don't wish them harm. I still call my mother. I still hug my father. I still love my sister's children like they're my own. But I stopped letting love be a leash. For 30 years, I believed that being a good daughter meant saying yes. Yes to the extra trip. Yes to the babysitting. Yes to the holiday obligation. Yes to the guilt. Yes to the $12,000 debt that bought my compliance for almost a decade. I thought that if I just kept giving, eventually they'd see me. Really see me. Not as the backup plan, not as the one with nothing going on, but as a person with a life worth respecting. They didn't see me until I stood up and forced them to look. That's not a happy truth, but it's an honest one. Setting a boundary didn't fix everything. My mother still struggles with it. My sister still resents me. My father is trying in his slow, stubborn way to understand a language he was never taught. But here's the thing about boundaries. They're not walls. They're doors. You decide when they open and when they close. You decide who walks through and under what terms. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for keeping them locked when you need to. If you're listening to this and you're in the middle of your own version of this story, I want you to know something. You're not selfish for saying no. You're not ungrateful for wanting your own life. And you're not broken because the people who raised you can't see past their own blueprint. You're just awake, and that's enough. It's fall now. October air. The leaves on the maple outside my kitchen window have started to turn. Gold at the edges, still green in the center. I'm sitting at my table, laptop open, CPA prep binder on the left, whole follow-up notes on the right. Coffee going cold next to my elbow because I always pour it and forget to drink it. My phone buzzes. Patricia, proud of you, kid. Go crush that exam. I smile and type back a heart emoji. She sends one back. That's our whole thing now. Short, warm, consistent. The kind of relationship I didn't know I was missing. A minute later, another buzz. Meredith's name. I haven't seen it on my screen in weeks. Baby's due in 6 weeks. Would you want to come to the shower? No pressure. I stare at it. Read it twice, 3 times. No pressure. 2 words she's never used with me before. I don't know what it means. I don't know if it's a genuine olive branch or just another strategic move. I don't know if she's changed or if she's simply run out of other options. But I know this. I'm strong enough now to walk into that room on my own terms, to say yes and mean it, or to say no and mean that too. I type back, send me the date. Then I close the message, take a sip of my cold coffee, and open my prep book to chapter 14. Outside, the wind picks up, the maple leaves rattle. Somewhere down the street, a kid is riding a bike, and I can hear the faint click of training wheels on pavement. I pour a fresh cup of coffee, find my place in the chapter, and get back to building my life on my terms. That's my story. And I want to ask you, if you had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself, which one would you pick? Drop your answer in the comments. If you chose yourself, I'm proud of you. If you haven't yet, I hope this story gave you permission to start. If you want more stories like this, check out the videos in the description below. And if this one meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next